It is Thursday, April 17th. This is Damon Bruce. Plus, that is Sam Batesh. It is so good to have you back here. Sammy, every Thursday, stops on by, thinking out loud. We're thinking about sports, Hamantasha, lots of important stuff here on the show. As always, we're brought to you by Ike Sandwiches, and it's great to see everybody again. Thanks for coming on back. Like, subscribe, all those good things. Hello, Sammy.
Dude, speaking of Hamantashen, by the way, which are excellent as we know, and they are cookies, but it is Passover, Damon. We're technically, in the Jewish community, we're technically not supposed to be eating any type of bread right now. Now, to have a slice of bread, no big deal. You could lose that. But think about what is bread
You're
in your
looking for
life.
loopholes. Don't want to say it fits the mold, but you're looking for loopholes.
I am, because bread really, that's pizza, that's sandwiches, that's chocolate chip cookies. And for me, those are three food groups of themselves. So losing those is just a disaster. And by the way, being at a Dodger game as I was the other night, a hot dog without a bun, what do you do? That's not possible. So sure. The Hamantashen takes a back seat. The bread takes a back seat. Passover for a week. To me, it's the hardest holiday anywhere to go a week without bread. And Damon, we know that you have gone a week without many things. You've had amazing diets in your life. My favorite, of course, you were one of the first on Atkins. You were eating prosciutto like they were fruit roll-ups.
Didn't work.
My favorite thing ever.
What is more LA Super Jew? Sitting in a Dodger game, eating a hot dog without a bun, or like standing up to blow a rally shofar?
I would say, yes, you're right. The rally shofar would be probably the most. That would be the most. But trying to get a hot dog through without the bun, that is classic Los Angeles. Yes.
It is. It's good to see everyone. Happy Passover. Sam, seriously, happy Passover.
Thank you much, dude. Thank you much. It's a good one.
I don't know if you're supposed to be using electricity today, but thank you for risking your eternal soul to be with us. It is great to have you here. And look, we are getting really, really close. We're a week away from draft day, right? I mean, if you got a mock, put it forward, or, we don't want to hear from you.
Nope.
Kind of an interesting new name has come into the fold for the 49ers to consider, and it's not a name that they would pick up in the draft, although maybe trading some draft capital to Miami would get it done. But Jaylen Ramsey is apparently on the market here, Sammy. The Dolphins have basically said, yeah, we had a big plan. It didn't really work, and so now we're looking to get rid of that big plan. Jaylen Ramsey, for a speck of the money that he would cost, because the Dolphins would have to eat an awful lot of that contract. He's not quite who he used to be, but he's still a very, very good player, a bona fide NFL starter at the age of 30. He'd be a big corner that would instantly replace Mooney Ward. Javarius Ward is no longer here. You keep Diamador Lenore in the slot where he's a natural at that position. Fourth rounder for Jaylen Ramsey. If I'm the 49ers, I make that phone call. Absolutely, I do.
You have to get on the phone. You have to make it an option. For Robert Saleh, I feel like you've got to do this, Damon. This takes a defense that was once formidable and feared and gives it a little bit of that back. Is Jaylen Ramsey the player that he was? Is he definitely? Is he essentially what he was when he was a Jaguar? Is he was even when he was a Ram? The Dolphins thing.
Every game, call you a list of wide receivers who he owns. That guy.
Look, we understand that. And by the way, this, of all the flames that burn hot and fast in the NFL, we always talk about running back, but cornerback is also one of those where, there was the comment this week by DaCosta from the Ravens who said cornerbacks are a lot like Bugattis. They break down. Cornerbacks, I mean, just think about Darrelle Revis, Richard Sherman, right? Revis Island. It goes quick where you're the guy and you matter more than anything. And then all of a sudden, by the way,
you're a cap casualty.
Cap casualty. There's someone faster. It's a position that you got to beware of what you're paying. So the fact that the Dolphins would pay some of that makes it really fascinating. I love it for that. I just hope it's not a reach in regards to what the guy's name is and what he's actually going to bring to the table for this 49ers defense. I love taking a look at it. What I didn't love is I saw at one point basically Trent Williams for Jaylen Ramsey, which is kind of what you're looking at money-wise, maybe. That maybe you're right.
That is absurd. There is no trading Trent Williams. That is, to even put that on the table, like that would be the vehicle by which you would do this. That's insane. You're not trading Trent Williams for Jaylen Ramsey, even if the Dolphins called and offered that. The Niners say no to that.
I don't think you can do that. It just feels it's short-sighted. And I understand there were games played without Trent Williams, but by the way, look at how those go. Trent Williams is one of those guys. It's hilarious. When I was working with Colin Cowherd, we constantly went back to this. It was the Carson Wentz with and without Lane Johnson, and it was just like fall off a cliff in regards to the Eagles' offense with and without those players, those positions, which to the layman is sort of just like, okay, whatever. The line's out there blocking, right? Like it's happening. No.
Right. Get someone else to do that.
No, these men are houses in there. I mean, you're taking a house off the cul-de-sac block when you take Trent Williams out. I mean,
right.
This is a big deal. That is going to represent more plays in a game, Trent Williams is, than Jaylen Ramsey. Right? I mean, just think about that, right? Every offensive play is running through Trent Williams, essentially. Every defensive play is not going to be predicated on Jaylen Ramsey. And so it's just one of those where that's not the right cost. I don't think that's the right trade. But if you say unnamed fourth rounder, now
we can talk.
It feels like, okay, Jaylen Ramsey, if he's available on draft day, right? If Jaylen Ramsey just inserts himself if he declares himself eligible for the 2025 draft, he's going to get picked up before the fourth round.
Are you going to draft a player who's better to play, more ready to go and play corner for you on week one than Jaylen Ramsey? Obviously not. Now you could be picking up a player who I believe would be, valuable down the road. There's no such thing as having too many corners or anything like that. But when I look at the amount of draft capital that the 49ers do have, if you're telling me that I can add a really good corner who I don't need to worry about. Like you can put Jaylen Ramsey at corner and just say it's his job. He won't play it perfectly, but he's going to do a lot better than a rookie making rookie mistakes. So just do that for the fourth rounder if that's what it needs. Third rounder, I would even talk about a third rounder for Jaylen Ramsey. I really, really would if I were the 49ers. I think it's something that John Lynch absolutely has to explore. The other Dolphin that seemingly might be out there kind of due to his own mistakes is Tyreek Hill. It feels like the Dolphins kind of have reached the end of their patience with him to be a good citizen. He is the opposite of the person that the 49ers would want, but he's exactly the type of player that the 49ers need. I don't think that they would do a Tyreek Hill, but Jaylen Ramsey is a phone call the 49ers deserve to have.
And this is what it comes down to. When you're looking at your team and you're considering these moves, again, remember, the owner's not calling you for any money. So that's always nice as a fan to just say, do it, right? It's like I'm not sitting here crunching the cap as a fan because that money's not coming out of my pocket. So it's like, do whatever it takes. Get whoever you got to get. But it comes down to the conversation we had about the Bosa brothers. This is really a conversation about how long is Nick Bosa going to be the anchor of your defense. This is about capitalizing the time you have with Nick Bosa. I always go back to this. Mike Trout's career as a multiple MVP at the course of a decade playing with the Angels. How many playoff games did the Angels win with Mike Trout as a Hall of Fame MVP caliber? No argument, best player in the game for many of those years. Zero.
I don't know. Series, definitely zero.
It's also zero for games. They got swept by the Royals in the one series he played in 2014. The only reason I bring that up is because you're talking about maximizing the time you have. When somebody is a comet in the world, when somebody is that special at that position, when you're talking about face of a defense, one of the faces of the defense in the NFL for a stretch of time, it's not going to last forever. The Raiders ask themselves, how long do we have with Max Crosby? Is this defense going to be special, anchored by Max Crosby? Same goes for Nick Bosa. The question is, are you surrounding Nick Bosa? And coming out of this free agency period, we know that there are so many questions about what the Niners are doing on defense. This plugs a hole in regards to what just happened in this offseason with free agency.
I might have had the single most unimaginative thumbnail of my career for today's show, where I just simply pick good players. Like, there you go. There, the NFL draft, we can take it apart. We can put it back together. We can deconstruct it. We can walk around the car 15 times before we actually decide to buy it or not. The bottom line is pick good players. You just need to have good players here. And, I think Jaylen Ramsey comes as a good player. Is he a perfect player? The answer is no. He's a good player. I just felt for whatever reason, my bladder just tickled. Sam, can you carry the show without me?
I can do it, dude. If you got to roll, let's do it.
I'll be right back.
100%.
I will be right back, and we will have a hell of a show. Sammy, take it away. Sam, I'm going to put you right. You know what? I'm going to make him big.
Oh, look at this.
No, wait a minute.
Look at you. We're absolutely ready to rock. All right. First of all, I want to take two things into account here with Jaylen Ramsey. Number one, as I said, Nick Bosa's career. Okay. Let's look at how much time we have with Nick Bosa being a dominant player in this way on this defense. We're talking about 5 years more where Nick Bosa is going to be dominant. Can you pair him with enough players without losing out? And remember, injuries are going to play a part of this, but we're looking at Fred Warner. I went back. I was looking at some draft picks. I'm remembering Patrick Willis. I'm remembering what it's like to have players on this defense that make that kind of a difference. You got to take advantage of the time that you have. Jaylen Ramsey is the right thing to take a look at. Now, the other side of that argument would be, look at the last season's Defensive Rookie of the Year finalists. The Eagles had 2 of them, and the Rams had 2 of them. So sometimes you can build your defense with the draft. You can get it done immediately with rookies that have an impact. It is rare. The fact that you had 2 teams with 2 Defensive Rookie of the Year finalists is historic in and of itself. Do the Niners draft well? Generally, yes. But in regards to Jaylen Ramsey, Damon hit it on the head. 4th rounder, that's a player with no face at the moment. You go out and you make that move. Now, let's talk about the other side of this. Tyreek Hill, who, yes, actions off the field, really interesting. Is he available? He's also written bye-bye on social media. It feels like he has reached his critical mass moment, and he feels like perhaps there's more for him to do, and it may not be happening for him in Miami. 2 seasons ago, he's probably feeling like, okay, I've got an offense that's on the rise with Mike McDaniel, and maybe this can happen. Then they go and play a freezing cold game against the Chiefs. It doesn't happen there. The next season, Tua is hurt again, and Tyreek's probably thinking, you know what? And by the way, you can't just, as much as Mike McDaniel's a genius, and we talk about this all the time with Purdy and Shanahan, inserting another quarterback and that Mike McDaniel offense, by the way, that did not work last season. I mean, no. it was that offense fell off a cliff without Tua, and none of us consider Tua the magic maker. None of us consider that Tua is just like, oh, you plug Tua into any offense and now your offense is taken.
He might not be the best quarterback in the league, but he's definitely the best quarterback the Miami Dolphins got.
And Tyreek Hill saw that.
That guy, have the next guy in the room, which always brings us back to Brock Purdy. And let me just say, part of the magic of aging is watching how differently your bladder starts to work when you get to the age of 50. I feel like I need to start getting the Joe Theismann, what was it? The Saul Palmetto, the prostate nonsense. Like, was he right about that?
Well, let me give you, okay, let's take, okay. I'm going to put a quick pin in the Tyreek Hill thing to go down this bladder path with you real quick. Do you know that Friday?
Drink some whiskey while we're talking about it.
I love this, Damon. Friday night, I was laying on the floor of the emergency room at the hospital with a kidney stone. Have you done the kidney stone dance? Have you done the kidney stone dance?
3.
You've done 3.
I've done 3.
Okay.
I had to go to the hospital for one. So can I tell you about
how'd you handle the others without a hospital?
Grin and bear it. Just massive pain. Massive pain.
I'm taking a sip for that for you. What?
Yeah. So because I realized that once you go to the hospital, what you get, here's the thing. You know how I got through it? I had my own drugs.
Okay, good. Yeah, because once you realize you need those drugs on tap, you need to have them like in a special place for that particular moment. Yes, because that's all you really need.
I had my own, pain pill.
Elixir.
I had my own, I can handle it. I don't need to go to the hospital. The very first time I had a kid, and I didn't know what was happening. This was insane pain. I walk into a late night hospital in San Francisco, right above the Panhandle, up on Parnassus,
I know it well.
And I walk in, and the single gayest male nurse of all time turned into my angel that night. He literally, as soon as I walked in, he said, "Oh, honey," because I walked in like this. In like this.
Yes. And there's only one diagnosis at that point. For anyone that sees you as a generally healthy man, boom.
I walked in, he said, "Honey, that's the international sign for kidney stone."
Amazing.
And I said, "I think you're right." I felt like I had been harpooned. This guy basically put me on a gurney, gave me the drugs, and patted my head until I passed out for a little bit. He was my gay angel. I love this man.
Thank
He's
God.
my favorite nurse of all time. This guy saw me, responded, was there for me, bedside manner, nailed it.
Thank God. And I walked in, and the security guard policeman that was right there, policewoman, I get out of my friend Jason's car. He pulls up screeching into the parking lot. I get out. I'm doing the same dance you are. And she says, "Oh, gallstone." Now, she was off slightly, but immediately she knew, oh, yeah, I got shot with a bow and arrow in the back, and she knew it. They wheeled me in. And as soon as I wasn't with a doctor or a nurse, which I wasn't immediately, I laid on the floor in the emergency room. I shower 2 to 3 times a day. All right. That's how ridiculous I am. And yet I was cuddled up on the floor of the emergency room because that's the only place I could get potential relief. And there is no relief other than the drugs hitting.
No, there's you can't stop it. You can't stop it. And I did not know that. Okay. This is way off the main topic.
That's okay. But we're getting there.
I always thought that the pain of the kidney stone would be like the stone passing through the schwanz.
Every man who tells this story, the guy on the other end hearing the story thinks, oh, passing through my penis, worst potential. Yeah, of course.
No.
The worst.
It is the little connector, the little tube that runs between your kidney and your bladder. That's where hell, that's the 5th circle of hell, the 7th circle of hell. I'm sorry you went through that. I'm glad you came out of it.
That's it. And my point was going to be, so now I'm taking Flomax, which as you got up and left, I thought, oh, okay, there you go. That's our future. With the bladder now is a totally different scenario to
We're in
consider.
A whole new ball game.
I thank my bladder for catching that stone and taking care of it. But again, like you said, the train ride to the bladder, don't need to take that ride anymore.
You don't want it.
That's
By
it.
the way, I'm seeing some happy early birthdays for Joe Sullivan here. I'm going to be tuned in tomorrow for some early celebrating.
Oh, that's great.
Get in on Wake Up tomorrow, because Larry and I are doing a Wake Up, and then that is it. I am bon voyaging or konnichiwaing to Tokyo. So
dude, how many days? And I want content from there. You better be your social media better be active.
Hey, I'm going to be covering the NFL draft live from Tokyo, the way that everybody wants it.
That's what we needed. That's what we needed.
That's what America needed.
Like Windhorse in France for Wembenyama at the NBA draft. Yeah, exactly. A lot of good Japanese prospects in this year's NFL draft. This should be exciting.
Is there a 49ers bar in Tokyo? There's got to be, right? There's everything in Tokyo.
Yes. By the way, yes, there is. Yes, there is. They'll be watching. You're going to find it. And that's what's amazing. I can't wait for that. That is.
Can I ask you, it's so funny. The NFL draft has become something in my life that I have never, ever, ever even assumed would have the appeal that it does. I didn't think that it would ever work its way until the general public consciousness. I thought it would definitely work its way through the football fan consciousness, but the general public picking up what the NFL puts down in terms of the NFL draft is something I could have never, ever expected. By the way, Joe Sullivan saying, I'll see you.
Yes.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. It's the biggest groupthink exercise we might have together in sports. Experts and novice alike all come forward with their mock drafts. It's always a fun exercise. If you're a football fan, it's a fun list to make. But
it's a great list.
It puts so much misinformation into the world, and a whole bunch of absolute nobody novices who have not watched tape. Just because you've watched some highlights on YouTube doesn't mean you're grinding tape. Okay. You got a whole bunch of people saying, well, I think this guy is a day 3 pick. And then when he goes day 2, the entire internet collectively shouts overdrafted. They don't know anything about it at all. Let me ask you this, because you worked again with Cowherd, who has at his disposal basically anybody he wants.
Yes.
Any bit of information, any guest he needs makes the show if he wants it. When you were working and booking for Cowherd, did you have guys or websites pitching you on using their mock drafts or mock draft experts so they could be like the mock draft of record? Because it's an industry within inside of an industry.
There were plenty, by the way, and I got to give credit. Dave Coelho, Cool Breeze as he's known, and you and I worked with him actually at
I know Dave.
KMBR. Dave Coelho, and we go back with Dave. Dave was there with us actually in '99 or 2000 at KMBR, and worked a lot with Ralph and Tom. And I know we'll get a little Barbieri before we go today, before you head off today. so Dave was booking guests back in the day for Ralph and Tom, and then he's actually the #1 main guest booker for Colin. And Dave, the interesting thing is, Dave's got plenty of suggestions. Colin, remember this, Damon, at his core. Colin is a college football in the weeds, transfer portal kind of a guy. He lives for this. So Colin actually is more in it than I would say than any host I've ever worked with, as far as when it comes to draft and the inside weeds of college football.
Right.
Colin loves the discovery.
Cowherd's indeed.
Guy. Yes.
I've always felt you can feel Colin Cowherd's worst command of any subject is basketball.
Yes, and that's okay.
Most command is football.
It is. It absolutely. And by the way, and in regards to even basketball, it helped LeBron sort of becoming an expert in LeBron, which he has. That helped. It helps when the greatest player in the league is something that he's sort of like gotten inside the brain of. So that's
right.
He has a great way of doing that. But college football, you're so right, because college, he knew early on when USC was rocking with Pete Carroll, Colin was so locked into that program and just how they built it. And he has always had an interest in the diamonds and the rough and finding what he could. And so Colin loves discovering these guys, Damon. Colin will find a mock draft and come into the meeting and say, we got to talk to this guy. Look at what he thinks. This is a wild theory. Let's go for it. And then Colin was sort of an early adapter in the Ringer, the Athletic. Like he would discover plays PFF early on. Colin loved discovering that. So as much as people, yes, and people would reach out to Colin. Colin's active on social media also. So Colin would get some direct hits from people as well. But that's really where it happens. Colin's actually doing homework as he's just consuming. He's actually doing that homework.
What did you guys agree was like the mock draft of record? Here he is,
okay,
he's at Fox, and he doesn't want to come forward with ESPN lists quite like he used to, but it still feels like, if you're not working off something that Schefter or at the time McVay was working on ESPN, you were at NFL Network, maybe because that felt neutral enough to bring that on Fox. You get network affiliation standing in the way of information sometimes. So how did that all work out?
The #1 guy that I would say, I don't want to say Colin discovered this guy. He was going to have a career without Colin, but the guy that definitely showed up again and again with Colin and was a name that was not a household name and now is Bucky Brooks, NFL Network.
Yeah.
Colin locked into Bucky early. He loved that Bucky played in the league and then turned his brain into understanding each position, and his inside knowledge and the way that he really dissected players, the way that he did, and understanding measurements, etc. Bucky Brooks is a guy that Colin wanted to see again and again and again, back when Bucky was not on the tip of everybody's tongue when it came to draft. Yeah. Bucky's that guy. Another guy who's tremendous when it comes to the draft, and another guy that Colin fell in love with quick, Joel Klatt. Now, Klatt, you gotta remember something. As much as Klatt is now akin to your guy Kirk Herbstreit, Joel Klatt was, first of all, he was hosting something called like Fox NFL Daily back when Fox Sports 1 first launched. Right. Joel was both hosting and an analyst. He was a college football guy that came on for segments. He wasn't calling Game of the Week with Gus at that time, with Gus Johnson. And then he became the analyst for the Game of the Week for Fox, and it took off. And he always was a draftnik. He always understood player development, etc. Klatt's another guy Colin really leans on when it comes to those opinions. But Bucky's the guy that wasn't really housed at Fox that Colin said, okay, this guy matters. We got to tap into this brain. And then it fueled into a number of other shows as well. So Bucky's that guy. And I also just want to give credit to a guy that was at Fox for a long time. Peter Schrager was the first ever 7-round mock draft that I consumed. Yeah. And by the way, yesterday, Andrew Siciliano and I did what is hilarious. We did a 10-minute mock draft of the first round. We took the first 2 picks off the board, and then we went 20 seconds per pick for the next 30, and we just ripped through it. Going through that, I mean, I had my glasses on, Damon. I'm reading off a paper. It was like the most intense fantasy football draft of my life that we were doing as I was going for need and then in player, my big board. Can I just tell you that a 7-round mock draft, whatever thesis you've written in your life, whatever college master's degree you've ever gotten, a 7-round mock draft, there is not a more intense project. I don't know how he did it. Getting through one was intense for me. I'm so impressed that Peter did that. And to not only know the players, but then to understand the teams and the needs and what could be available.
It's huge. This guy sees the matrix. And as he's doing it, he has to be the first to admit that all of this is disposable. This is nothing but an educated guess. One guy goes out of place, the entire row of dominoes falls, and it's amazing how we lean into these things and put so much focus and attention on them, and then they immediately, like instantaneously, become completely disposable, absolutely worthless lists. That why did we go off this? We were so wrong. It's a fun exercise for sure.
And another one, by the way, I just want to go to, because I was collecting this last night. We were looking at draft picks. You and I were having fun looking at a list of draft picks since 2000 and sort of who are the best and who are the worst. It's just funny what we get involved in at the top of these drafts. You know, Jameis or Marcus Mariota, like who's going to go 1 or 2, and then you go back and you look at the draft, and it's like, okay, it
didn't matter who you picked. Neither was good.
It didn't really matter. And Jameis, like they're both still in the league,
right,
okay, but. Yeah, but you know, I mean, realistically, Stephon Diggs is in that draft. You know, Trey Flowers, Marcus Peters. There's a Todd Gurley, Amari Cooper. It's just like there ends up being so much else, and yet, like you said, we all get caught up in the minutia of that one guy. And right now it's Shedeur Sanders, and everyone's going to lose their life about where he goes, right? And then in the end, we're going to look back in 10 years, Damon, and he's not even going to be the story.
No. Probably not. By the way, did you see that Colorado is going to retire Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders' numbers? So Travis Hunter won a Heisman Trophy. If they've also retired Eric Bieniemy's number, that makes sense.
Sure.
Shedeur Sanders, that's the softest number retirement maybe in sports history.
Other than
I'm not even sure he was an All-American.
I think Kevin Durant had one with the Nets, right? Did Kevin Durant have a Nets number retirement? I think, which was hilarious. So there, and that a lot of people had feigned outrage about that, but. The idea that Colorado did that, I will say one thing. It does speak to the consumption of the public, okay? And what I mean by that is the popularity of Shedeur Sanders will soften how ridiculous that feels to us right now, because people in the public are not going to necessarily be outraged by that. They'll think back and say, well, that might have been the most significant Colorado season of all time.
Right.
And he was the quarterback. Okay,
Maybe.
Great. And his dad's prime, right? I mean, his dad's Deion Sanders. I mean, there's something to remembering what this season was. And of course, it's a long time since they.
Well, you could have done that by retiring Travis Hunter's number.
And that's it. You're right. It should have ended there. End it there.
Meanwhile, I thought this is one of those, while it's happening, there's always a debate about how it should play out. Should it go this way? Should they do that? Should they tank it? Blah, 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 blah. Well, here is the hindsight always being 2020 analysis of what should you do with a bad football team at the end of the year who's trying to get a number 1 overall pick. Adam Schefter today said that the Giants have private quarterback workouts with Shedeur Sanders today in Boulder. They're going to be talking with Jalen Milroe Friday in Alabama. And this weekend, they're going to be heading to Louisville to talk to Tyler Show and talk to him about
Tyler Shuck, by the way, which I love that. First of all, it's hilarious. No, let me just say something for everyone that's like laughing at the pronunciations here. There's nothing like the draft to take a player that isn't known in 1 second and becomes the name of note 1 year later. I mean, how many commissioners have mispronounced names of spectacular players later on? So there is nothing. Everyone pretends to be an expert right now. Don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself into what you're reading and consuming right now either. We're all becoming experts right now.
So they're going to be talking to 3 different quarterbacks with the potential to draft one of them. They've also signed Russell Wilson. They've also signed Jameis Winston.
Our guy Jameis.
And so they have all of this mess. The 2 established quarterbacks that come with massive question marks that you brought in, that you feel so good about bringing in, you're already thinking, who are we going to draft at quarterback? And we've got 3 meetings coming up this week. Warren Sharp, who's one of the sharpest guys out there covering the league, he just said, look, 8 days before the season ended last year, this was so avoidable. On December 29th, the Giants were 2-13. They had the number 1 pick locked up. They just needed to lose 2 more games to 2 teams fighting for playoff positioning, and they didn't. They had Tommy Cutlets bring him into the win column twice. and now create this mess, all this busy work, 2 quarterbacks brought in that you're not really crazy about either of them. I mean, so by the way, next time when the choice is, should we put up the old good college try or should we lay down and die and have the number 1 overall pick? Lay down and die.
Just take a nap. Just take a nap.
Lay down and die.
Just take a nap. That's all you need to do. The Giants, it almost feels unfair. It certainly feels unfair with the Eagles championship hat behind me to even speak about what the Giants did last season and, of course, last offseason. The amount of items that have gone wrong for the Giants since signing Daniel Jones is really laughable. Of course, Saquon leaving the building, that's at this point irrefutable as just hindsight crushing you. The Daniel Jones contract, we can look back and say it made sense at the time.
No, it didn't. But I mean, it didn't even make sense.
History will set that on fire. You can say, okay, he won a playoff game, which he did. He beat Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. But that history will look very unkindly at the Daniel Jones signing. So there is that and that. In regards to losing at the end of the season, are you kidding me? It's not about here's the other part about it. This is what it comes down to, Damon. We're talking about 2 weeks. We're not talking about 10 games. See, this is a different conversation in the NFL than it is in the NBA. It's a different conversation because of the amount of games. In the NFL, you're talking about 2 games. In the NBA, you're talking about 20 to 30.
Right. We're going to throw away a month and a half of basketball.
That's so different. Not to mention, we all understand in the NFL, there are certain games that don't matter that much at the end of the season. That's okay. That's okay. If Jags Colts in week 16 doesn't matter as much as Broncos Chiefs, that's okay. That's okay. First of all, gambling will make it matter. Fantasy will make it matter. It's all right that the win and loss there won't matter that much. And if you are a fan of that team, at that point, you've turned your brain. What do you want to be 3-14 as opposed to 2-15? Is that like, what kind of bragging rights do you have as a fan? At that point, you've decided what player in college right now is going to make my team better next year since this season sucked.
At some point,
you don't need to be better.
Not what's happening next, not what's happening now. And that's the way smart teams work. And that's the way smart teams operate. And I think a smarter team than the New York Giants would have looked at their situation, who they are, what their team looked like, and said, we cannot walk off the field with 2 W's at the end of the year more than we need to walk into the draft with the number 1 overall.
And the smartest thing I've heard out of the Giants in regards to the signing of Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston is perhaps that they're setting themselves up because they are already in love with Arch Manning. So they know that a year from now, that this is not the draft for them to get a quarterback. They've built a bridge to Arch Manning in Russ and Jameis, and that will be their plan. I will say if they pull it off, and if, of course, Arch Manning ends up in the Hall of Fame or anywhere near Peyton or Eli, then they will have shown us all that they knew what was coming. And that'll be amazing. For Joe Schoen, that'll be a feather in the cap, and that'll wipe away some of this. It's going to take 10 years to make that opinion really come true. But if that is the plan, and if Arch Manning turns out to be the guy, and I and F are the 2 greatest letters in sports that you just never know. But, okay, that would be something.
I mean, if you're the New Orleans Saints, don't you want to go 0-17 this year for Arch Manning?
That's it. That's it. How do you not get Manning there, right? How do you not, and you don't have a quarterback solution, and you're probably going to end up drafting Shador, but imagine doing it for Arch. That would make a lot more sense. That's how I see it. But the Giants, is there any, I mean, Malik Neighbors turned out amazing.
Yeah.
Without question, right? I mean, just without question. That's a draft. And again, it looks odd. Like the funny thing is, we tear down front offices for the terrible draft picks. And then when it's a draft pick of a player that we knew about, it's like, oh, that was obvious. Of course they had to take him. Well, no. Other teams passed on that. Like getting Malik Neighbors is making the right decision. That turned out to be the right option for them. And that is a smart move by Joe Schoen. But overall, the Giants, can we ask someone? I mean, I don't know that there's going to be a ton of Giants fans here in the chat, but is there a more painful season for the Giants than last season to watch that? I mean, Saquon set the record for the most rushing yards of all time in the league, playoffs and regular season combined, and won a championship for your rival.
Right. Not only did you help an arch rival win a Super Bowl with a indefensible personnel decision, but you now watch the Washington Commanders on full ascension mode and have all of the buzz of the team that's going to be next in your division. And then that other team is the Dallas Cowboys, who, thanks to Jerry Jones, just can't get out of their own way. And I wonder, Sammy, is this the week that Emmitt Smith's checks stop clearing? Did you see what he said on WIP in Philadelphia? He called the Cowboys a crying shame in comparison to the Eagles, saying, I'm sick of it. We've had all others nitpick and make fun of the star, and this is what happens. You make fun of the star now. All of a sudden, over the last 20 years, the Eagles have won 2 Super Bowls. They think they're the best on the planet. I hear "Go Birds." I'm sick and tired of hearing "Go Birds." Emmitt Smith has had it with Jerry Jones, for goodness sakes.
So here's what's great about this. We have such a loyalty in sports. There is such a loyalty to your team, and some guys are really great at it. I'll give Troy Aikman credit, by the way. I think Troy does an amazing job on broadcasts of not being a homer for the Cowboys. In fact, I would say he's even uber critical of the Cowboys. But a lot of former players, when they're not in position to be a broadcaster,
you
are
can hear
very
he's
good.
Pissed almost. You can hear that Aikman's pissed at what he sees.
I agree. Most guys that aren't in the media for the Cowboys or for any team for that matter, they do a great job of towing the company line well after the fact. And I'd say Emmitt has been a great soldier. I think he's generally a good spokesperson for who the Cowboys are. You can tell Michael Irvin as well.
Great spokesman.
Michael Irvin as well. You can tell how painful it is, not just to watch other teams win the Super Bowl, but when it's a team that you knew that you could beat back in the day when you were winning a Super Bowl. And now that is the team laughing at you, David Akers at the draft, making fun of the Cowboy fans. I mean, it is. And as you just mentioned, Washington and Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game, 2 NFC East teams in that NFC Championship game, while the Cowboys are nowhere near it. And as you and I have talked about many times, every single NFC team has been to the championship game ahead of the Cowboys at this point in their history. That is ridiculous.
That's amazing.
It is so right on. It's refreshing that Emmitt is saying it, though, because the Cowboys, as much as there is hype based on them every single season, what they've done in recent memory, I'm not going to say it's not enough. And I've also been a Dak supporter. I really have been. I've been someone who says Dak's the right guy. They got it right. Pay Dak. I love, because Dak, some of Dak's greatest games have come against the Eagles. I'm a little biased. He's looked great in those matchups, but otherwise it's pretty much the 2016 season. And then a lot of, okay, we're hoping for that again.
I've seen Dak flame out
against the Niners. It's been a disaster.
It's been awful.
Total disaster.
He's not nearly as bad of a quarterback as he's looked against the 49ers.
Yes.
And look, in the year that there was talk about Purdy being an MVP, there was talk about Dak being an MVP as well.
He was in the conversation. He was in that conversation 100%. But let look. Here's what Emmitt is saying. This one hurt. Because, and here's the other part of it. The Eagles also dominated a Super Bowl. Remember, the Cowboys, if not for Leon Lett slowing down and Steve Tasker, they would have set the record, right, for the greatest blowout in Super Bowl history. I think it's Niners over Broncos, right, is actually number one.
Is it still 55-10?
I think so, right? Yeah, I think it is. But it was going to be that day if Leon makes it into the end zone, which of course he doesn't. Thanks to Beebe. Was it Beebe, not Tasker? Beebe, not Tasker, but Beebe. You're right. So that rundown, which is only outdone by the Buda Baker DK Metcalf play, but that moment says to Emmitt, I know what it's like to dominate the league, to dominate that game. And the Eagles really did it. And they did it in a way that said, maybe we'll be here for a while. I'm not one of these people that thinks that these dynasties just happen all the time. But Emmitt comes from a dynasty, and he's thinking, if I got to watch what was our doormat, I mean, basically the Eagles were competitive with the Cowboys, but let's be honest. I mean, the Cowboys owned that division. And it was them and the Niners for that conference, right? I mean, Brett Favre was kind of in there a little bit as well with the Packers. But I mean, it was Niners and Cowboys for the NFC. The Cowboys were representing the NFC East, and that was that. To see the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and the Niners for that matter, that hurts the Cowboys fans also. But think about what the Super Bowl has been represented by for the NFC. That hurts the Cowboys. To watch the Niners and the Eagles in the Super Bowl again and again while they're not even sniffing the NFC Championship game, that was the straw that broke Emmitt's back.
Maybe.
Enough's enough, and we're done.
You know, the straw that I think broke Mark Davis's back was sitting in his new Las Vegas stadium and watching the 49ers and his arch rival Kansas City Chiefs play in a Super Bowl. Like, the Chiefs are going to celebrate a Lombardi trophy in the home locker room that I built for the Raiders. That had to have been one of the most awkward watches, uncomfortable watches of all time. Or maybe Mark is, getting Hummers from a 22-year-old yoga instructor, so he doesn't really give a shit anymore. I don't know.
And again, I want to stamp it. Every Super Bowl should be in Las Vegas. Again, no apologies necessary. Miami, you're great. New Orleans, you're great. San Diego, you were amazing. LA, but just go to Vegas. Vegas is so prepared to do it every year. So
go to Vegas.
The stadium's amazing.
Look at it this way. When the Super Bowl is happening in Las Vegas, there's room for like 5 more things to also be going on. That's how good the Super Bowl is in Las Vegas.
Let it happen. Let it happen. Let it happen. And so for Mark, I even think for Mark Davis, that was a little less painful because of how amazing. Because basically, when you build a stadium, you're thinking, yes, of course, I want to see my team win a championship here. But you also know that you're going to host a Super Bowl, and that does a lot for your team, for your community. So good for him on that. But the pain that Emmett exemplifies for the Cowboys fans is simply, we cannot stomach the idea that the Eagles could hold this over us, maybe for beyond just one season.
That's tough. It's tough. Look, I got Erwin saying, hey, Damon, FYI on channel monetization. I got the intro and now 2 midstream commercials.
Wow.
Well, all I can tell you is that the algorithm has been kissing us on the forehead. Maybe that's a part of it. I can also tell you that if you sign up for YouTube Premium, you get no skippable ads. It's just boom, there you go.
That's great.
And since we're doing a little bit of business, let me tell you right now, you talk about ads getting shoved down your throat. How about a sandwich from Ike's this afternoon? Go get one. You'll be happy that you did. Damon, what kind of sandwich should I get? Well, look at this. It's the Munchie Melt, inspired by Weed Maps. Look at this new sandwich. Got roast beef, barbecue sauce, honey, hella cheese, which isn't like a brand of cheese. It's just saying you're going to get a lot of cheese. And for those of you who don't speak East Bay, we'll let you know what that means. But there you go. Check out Ike's. Get yourself to Ike's. Sign up for the Love Rewards program. And man, if there isn't an Ike's near you, I hope there is one soon. And you got to come to San Francisco, and you got to get to the Dubliner West Portal. Love those guys, Kenny and John at the Dubliner West Portal. It was a great place to watch the Masters. This is a great place to go pop in, watch a few Warriors playoff games. Great place to watch your NFL draft. Love the Dubliner West Portal. My kind of guys. Let's talk cookies on Passover.
Can we please? And this will be, we just got a few more days to get through the Stetas Hamantash. I'm going to write it here in the chat. Stetas Hamantash. STETAS This is a beautiful cookie. If you can picture the Pepperidge Farm shortbread cookie with the jelly in the middle. Stetas Hamantash. You put it on the screen. I love that, D. This is the cookie that you've got to get your hands on. Stetas Hamantash. My Aunt Marlene is Steta. She makes these cookies, and they will change the way you think about cookies forever. Get yourself Stetas Hamantash. She is crushing it in the kitchen. A baker unlike any other. Stetas Hamantash. I'm taking a picture for her right now of that on the scrone. This is the moment that matters. Thank you all, and we'll get through Passover together.
There you go. Let's get through Passover together, everybody. Look, one, I guess, last note about football before we start talking about a couple of other things that we always get into here, Sammy. Lee Corso is hanging up the headgear. He has one game day left for us. He will start this season on game day on August 30th. They haven't picked which of 3 games they're going to. Lee Corso's got one more show left in him. Now, let me just say, as the only Indiana alumni on this live stream right now, I have so much love and admiration for Lee Corso. For years, he was literally the only positive brand ambassador Indiana football had. He was the only thing that, and it was always delightful that part of Corso's appeal was just kind of laughing at him and not taking him too seriously. So him representing Indiana football, it made a lot of sense. The time for him to leave the show was probably around 2020. Like, he has officially been doing this too long, to the point where it almost at times looked like, I don't want to say elder abuse, but it looked like he was being put in a situation where he could only look bad and fail. And the only reason why it was allowed to happen is because it was obvious he was having so much fun. Lee Corso knew that he had lost his fastball. Everyone watching knew that he had lost his fastball, but we all admitted, let him pitch. Go ahead. Lee has not said a single important message on College Game Day for years now. He is basically a human bobblehead on which they put a mascot's helmet on at the end of the show. But he was so great at that. And he loved it so much. And it meant so much to him that it was worth sitting through the aging process of Lee Corso just to make Lee Corso happen. And now he is going to retire after one more College Game Day. And the love will be universal, as it should. But he really, it needed to happen years ago. I'm glad it's not going to come to an awkward end. And I was always wondering, like, are they going to let him die up there? What are they going to do? Are they just going to let him have a senior moment to the point where he's not responding to questions? Because it was getting old. It was getting hard to watch a little bit for someone who loved the guy. Look, it's a great chapter. It needed to end, and it will. Fare thee well, Lee Corso.
I want to add to that, but you really summed it up perfectly because it is both sides. It really is both sides. There was part of us that watched that thought, ooh, like each moment that passed, you're wondering, could something bad happen?
It was the equivalent of watching your aging grandparent behind the wheel of a car.
And guess what? The license gets taken away.
Right. At what point do we step in as the family and say, you shouldn't be driving anymore?
The license gets taken away, but you also hit it on the head. There's enough people there to lift him up around it, right? This isn't, if Lee was truly doing it on his own, he's by himself out there, forget it. It could not happen. But to be supported by the crew that he had there with him, to be able to still do the bit. And look, I'll argue maybe the way it should have been done is just have him out to do the bit. Like just have him out to do the helmet, right? Don't sit him the amount of hours for him to sit up there. Maybe that was unnecessary, but I'm going to let you provide the perfect kiss on the cheek, which I think you did, which is to say, we knew this had to happen, but it was so much fun. You represented so much for so long. This is okay. And I also want to say, this is really a moment in time for Pat McAfee because the show has officially now, this is the baton on that show, Damon. We are watching it officially. There are going to be generations of people who don't know who Lee Corso is. And Pat McAfee, we have to give him the credit for redefining what it is to be in a content space, to actually monetize it, to capitalize on who you are. And of course, look, he played in the NFL, but it's not like he played quarterback, right? He's a punter in the NFL. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is
close to not playing in the NFL as you can be while actually playing in the NFL.
So this is not a guy who has the silver spoon in his mouth. This is a guy who worked his ass off to create this, who said what was on his mind, who wasn't afraid to say things, and has been rewarded and is now in many ways going to define moving forward, even more so than Nick Saban, who's on that show. He is going to define what this means moving forward. It's not to say that we will forget who Lee Corso is, and I'm glad I've had years to see Lee still put on the head the way that he has and have that moment. I'm glad for our buddy Aaron Larsoul because they took a trip to Cal recently. Game day at Cal was like unheard of, and it actually happened, right?
One of the single best days in the history of Cal.
Yes.
It's the best. It's the best Cal has looked in a nationwide because people weren't making a whole bunch of commie pinko, liberal pussy jokes.
So true. And what a game. And what a game. I mean, by the way, that Miami game, what a game. Yes, for Cal fans, a painful one, but what a game.
They're all painful.
They are. But a near historic comeback / collapse, an epic game. What a day for game day. And to see that we can get Corso as part of the show in a year when that happens also, that is excellent. I'm glad
it made Jillian cry. Jillian had tears in her eyes watching it on the. I'm like, honey, look at this. Look at your school here, and she couldn't believe it. So Jillian was really into Cal. She was not a mic man. Kate Scott.
Oh, okay,
great man of her, but she was on the cheer squad. Yeah, she wasn't a cheerleader, but she was one of the people wearing the polo shirts.
So she's on the cheer squad, 100%. She's on the cheer team. That's a spirit team, I guess is what we call it, right? But yeah, so I love that, and they were out. By the way, at 3 a.m. they were lining up at Cal for that. They were gearing up for game day. So I love, again, Corso deserves credit for what game day has become, the way it defines. I mean, that defines whether your program matters in a season. I mean, that should only almost be a statistic for your team if game day showed up on campus. I mean, no, honestly, doesn't that define whether or not your season mattered and was in the conversation if game day showed up? Period.
It was unquestionably the official acknowledgement that Indiana's having a year. When game day finally came to Bloomington for the one and only time it's ever been there, that was the crowning achievement of a season that we all assumed, like, hey, this is really going in the right direction. Game day showing up means we're not just assuming it anymore. This is the right direction. Look at what's happening.
It's the stamp. It is the stamp. It is the stamp. It is the tip of the cap. That is it. So congratulations to Lee Corso. You and I both agree. We were worried. And by the way, as we get a little older, we can sort of now think about, okay, what would it be like looking at parents that are going through that, et cetera? You start to think,
I'm pretty sure I took a bathroom break 5 minutes into the show today.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Look, you and I was writhing in pain for kidney stones, and you've done it as well. Like, there's a reality to what happens on this earth in your body. And for Lee Corso, that's fine. It's just going to happen to all of us. Again, though, I just want to say, it really means the show also maybe in 2020 didn't quite know who would take the next step with them. And now it is so obvious that it's McAfee that I think it feels okay. That baton is truly there.
Right, there's someone to give it to.
Yes, this will be McAfee.
You know, here's the thing. I think McAfee as the sprinkles on top of a show, as the other guy on the show, as let's go see what crazy cousin Eddie has to say about something. I think he's great with that. But when, the thing that is, I don't want to say disappointed me about Pat McAfee, because I haven't lost a fraction of a second of sleep over Pat McAfee. But, like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. And his commitment to the I want to be amateur hour bit, the platform that he has now, like, dude, you got to grow up. You got to grow up. You are not the mom and pop shop anymore. You are not just the dude on YouTube who is hanging out with his collection of friends that you've built in the community that you fostered and all that stuff. There is so much more responsibility that comes with the stick that he has. And for him to be like proud of abdicating that responsibility, it makes me think no matter how entertaining you are, you weren't worthy of being handed such a platform. And it bothers me a little bit. A little bit. It really, again, I like the guy. I got no problems at all. He wants to also do wrestling. Great. Love that. No problems at all with any of that. He wants to have, controversial people come by his show. Fantastic. Great. No problems with him interviewing Aaron Rodgers at all. I don't care. But like the shit that he just got into with the girl, and like, there's a loose lips sink ships that is coming for him that I can't believe he can't see coming.
Look, it very well could. And here's the problem for all of us in life. When you are rewarded for doing something a certain way, it is so difficult to train your brain that doing it differently will be the key to your success moving forward. Because the key to your success to this point has been doing it in this very specific way. And of course, McAfee forged a path that was different than anybody else because of, if you want to call it juvenile in a way, let's just call it let's call it frat house type camaraderie with your boys.
The kids at the cool lunch table. That's what it was.
And because that represented, this is the cool new way to create content. This is the cool new way to talk about sports. It's going to be difficult to get a message through that says you're going to have to evolve and change that because you're just used to being successful on that in that way.
Right.
The guy he's closest to in what we do is Charles Barkley. There are certain people that are given a pass to say what is on their mind, and the world accepts it. And by the way, for you and I, Damon, the lesson is don't get angry at it. Let it be that Charles Barkley can say what he wants, and I can understand that I and you will be held to a different standard that way. It's okay. He earned it by being willing to say the thing and then waiting to see what the reaction would be. And because people consider Barkley a lovable person, they're able to see a lot of what he says in that light. In other words, so many people.
Well, the thing with Barkley, though, too, is that, as much as anyone wants to say, like, man, this guy, he performs all of his tricks without a net. Bullshit. Bullshit. The man is a multi-millionaire. So if he were thrown off television and TNT tomorrow, it wouldn't affect square footage in his life, not one bit. So when you have independent wealth, you do have a safety net. It's not that he's out there just if Charles Barkley were dependent on that next paycheck, he would talk much differently than he does. But because he's not, he has this intrinsic value that makes him an indispensable voice, but
guess what? Let him have that.
Already a multimillionaire, he'd be a much different person in the media.
But again, I'm just going to say it's okay that he can say something that I or somebody else couldn't, but he also took the chance in saying it and then waited for the response or the outrage that never came. And that just happens. It is in the delivery. It is in the messenger, and that's okay. And I think McAfee he's towing that line. And to your point, Damon, maybe one day we'll see. And then, of course, what we would say is, well, we all saw that coming. Right. The natural line when a terrible news story goes down, most people say unbelievable. This one would be believable.
Saw that.
It would simply be believable.
Yeah. Saw that one coming. By the way, Sporticus says Sammy just defined the essence of complacency that is inherently safe for the vast majority of humans. Yeah, no doubt. And Christopher saying, hey, just got hit with 2 midstream ads myself. Congrats, DBC. Never cross streams. Never cross streams.
Lomax.
Drew. Sherman, so he could be part of the tribe. He's pulling the card on you.
Yep.
Sherman. So, you can't eat hamantasha during Passover. It has flour, doesn't it? Sam, you're
This is true. This is true. And I said it. This is a painful time to know that I've got these amazing cookies and cannot eat them. Now, there is a recipe to do them without. There is, but
what are we here for?
Stefan knows how to make them best. Yeah. And we're talking about 7 days here. Okay, I'm gonna have as many hamantash as I can before Passover starts, and then as soon as it's done, I'm jumping back into the hamantash. And life is about balance. Life is about balance, Damon. It's okay. All right, you got to push away from the table once in a while. That's okay. I'm back to the hamantash soon.
One last thing, since we're talking about guys in media that we like, Corso, Pat McAfee as he evolves. There's one other guy who we both like very, very much, who just had a little bit of an anniversary, right? Our friend JT the Brick this past week celebrated the 30-year anniversary of being the first ever caller into the Jim Rome show to win the Smack Off. Winning the Smack Off is what made JT walk away from a career in finance, in trading, and being a broker to be a sports talk radio host. And I can tell you that of all the people I've met along the way, and Sam, I know that you feel this way about him too, he's one of the most genuine, authentic, good guys in an industry that is full of guarded, jealous, nasty, when you're not paying close attention people. He's been the opposite of that. He's been a huge, huge help, mentor, friend, sounding board to me in my career, and I know he's been the same for you. What a guy. Seriously, like tip of the cap to JT the Brick. His career brought him through the Bay Area. He's now the king of Las Vegas. He's done, more overnight shows probably than Art Bell now in American radio history. And this guy is one of the best guys. He's made millions of dollars in this industry. You would never know it. Just salt of the earth dude. And I'm glad that you had an awesome, congratulations show with him. I watched some of that, Sammy, and you got Jim Rome to wish him a congrats. That's cool because there was static between the two of them for a long time. Jim Rome was not very happy with his first ever Smack Off winner invading his space as a talk show host. So there was an icy relationship there, which has clearly thawed. And that's great. I'm glad everyone is cool and friends.
I had a feeling, and Damon, you and I have both run in circles with Jim, and I've had some great sit downs with Jim over the years. And we did, you did shows in that building as well. Jim basically built the building, him and Rush Limbaugh, that's here in Los Angeles, Sepulveda and Ventura, which was Premier Radio. Fox Sports Radio is still there. Clear Channel took over. It's changed hands. But when it was Premier Radio, Craig Kitchen ran Premier Radio. represented both Rush Limbaugh and Jim Rome and had the foresight to think, you know what, we could do 24 hours of sports out of this. We can leave Jim in his 3-hour slot, put 21 hours around it, and provide stations across the country with 24 hours of sports content. Amazing. JT's career comes full circle. He wins the Smack Off, becomes a radio host, and then at the pinnacle of his success at Fox Sports Radio, does a show at the same zip code as Jim Rome in the same building. Now, you spoke and you used the word icy. I had a feeling that it wasn't that at all. I had a feeling that we're all singularly focused and stars of our own sitcom, right? I mean, in the end, we're worried about, look, people like to use the word selfish. I always say this, selfish, who isn't? Who is not, like, at the end of the day, what decision is made that doesn't take yourself into account? Are we all kidding ourselves? Who isn't selfish? Selfish has a bad connotation. Selfish comes naturally to everybody. Everybody makes a decision thinking about how it's going to affect their life.
As selfishness isn't to the detriment of others.
Exactly. You don't have to be an asshole. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, be honest with yourself. When someone asks you to do something, is your first thought not about, okay, how's this going to affect my day? Like, how am I going to pull this off for me in my day? How's this affecting my day? So my thought was, I don't think Jim's spending a lot of time necessarily thinking about JT. And I think and look, they were in the moment great friends because Jim was so happy for JT for winning the first ever Smack Off. He did. JT sent a scud, as Jim called it that day, to really blow that up and say, okay, this is a contest that matters. JT nailed it, hit it out of the park. They went on tour stops together. It was clearly there. But for anybody, Damon, you can imagine there's a certain amount of, real estate. The stage is only so big, maybe, that you're thinking. And I don't think Jim was overthinking it. I never did. And so my thought was that day when JT said to me, Sammy, we could celebrate these 30 years. I'm thinking about going live on the YouTube page. You know the story great. Why don't you come on and ask me the questions and we'll just tell the story? And I thought, what a great idea. 5 minutes later, I say to myself, how do I tell the story without Jim? How do we tell this story without Jim, who, by the way, it's a celebration of JT's 30 years. What does that mean if JT's successful for 30 years after calling the show? What does that mean about Jim's success?
Jim Rome.
How about Jim Rome's success? What an incredible milestone for Jim. And let's be honest, for you and me, there is no greater legend. If you are in sports radio, forget about even our age. If you're in sports radio and making money at it, it's because of what Jim Rome did. He turned it into an industry. He turned it into a business model. Okay.
Talk radio has a holy trinity. It's Mike the Mad Dog and Jim Rome.
That's it. Thank you very much. So I decided, okay, if I can get a message to Jim that basically says, this is about you as much as it's about JT. I don't even know.
By the way, a producer knows how to sell a booking. Nice job.
How can I celebrate this moment without you being a piece of it? And you know what? The feeling I had about the fact that Jim really had a deference for JT, I was right. And you could tell what Jim said in that moment, Damon, was, I'm so glad that everyone can see the relationship that we have, JT, the friendship that we have, because you know what? There's enough to go around.
Totally.
That was the message, Damon. And by the way, you are living proof also, because guess what? If Jim Rome has a broadcasting tree, you're on it. You're on it.
Yeah.
You are on it. You are on it because JT, as you said, was not only a sounding board, but in many ways paved the path for you to do exactly what you knew you were always put on this earth to do. He helped make that happen. He was a supportive piece of your journey, and that matters so much. And Jim absolutely did it, and Jim did it for JT. He made it happen. Travis Rogers has an amazing career now. Kyle Brandt as well. So I loved that moment for Jim and JT. Congrats to both of them. It was tremendous in that moment, and it was a surprise to JT, and you could tell he was genuinely, kind of swept over by it.
How did you book Jim to come through? Did you call Alvin DeLauro?
So it was not through Whitey. It was not through Alvin that way. It was actually, again, we talk about the shared relationships in our life. I mean, again, I've spoken to Jim many times, but there was really, Craig Kitchen played a role in this as well. He knows both because he knows both so well. He knows Jim so well. He knows JT so well. And there was a part of that sort of collective conversation. And I did all of this without JT knowing. This wasn't a favor for JT. Really, I didn't want it to be about JT asking or doing anything. I really just wanted to put it on everyone's radar. April 14, 1995, is when you created this incredible moment. So let's just at least tip a cap to it. And Jim more than did that. I love him for it. He was so real. Jim was so real in that moment with JT, and they're two guys.
I want to share this moment. I got it right here. Here we go.
To talk with listeners, callers, and build lifetime relationships is a blessing. And Jim, you opened that portal for me. I can never thank you enough for it. And man, what a shock and nice surprise today. 30 years ago today, I won the smack off and it changed my life. And you had everything to do with it. Thank you so much.
My man, listen, happy anniversary to you, JT. I want to be so clear about this. You were good for our program, and maybe you use that as an impetus or a springboard. But, dude, you did all this. You really don't have anything to thank me for. You heard the radio program. You liked the radio program. You wanted to participate in that radio program. We both benefited from that. You got a little dopamine. I got better content. But let's be very clear about this, dude. You did all the work. You had your own vision. You put in the time. This great life and career that you created for yourself and those around you, you did on your own. So I am really, really proud of you. And I'm proud that we have such a good relationship and such a good connection because, man, there's enough to go around. There's enough to go around. You do not have to be a bad person to succeed in this business or this world, man. Just go to work, man.
Great stuff. Way to put that together, Sammy, for our friend. I'm happy that you did that.
It was, and Damon, if you weren't on at the same time, you would have showed up in that stream as well because you're a big part of the story. JT mentioned you as well by name, of course. He's so proud of what you've done in your career, what you did in the Bay Area, of course.
What's happening?
But guess what? Guess what JT's trying to do?
Right.
He's trying to forge a future in this space as well with YouTube. And you know what? I've said this many times on this stream. I've said it to you in phone calls as well. But you took a chance. Life handed you this opportunity to do something on your own, and you took zero and turned it into what we're doing right now. Nobody hands you shit in this platform. All right. It will reward you if you're interesting, but that's all. You got to do the rest. You got to do the heavy lift. You did it. JT respects the hell out of that because he knows the journey and he's grinding it through himself right now. He's got other platforms as well, but he's trying to win on this one. And as I even said to Jim took a wide open platform on X. Nobody was doing daily video content on a sports show for 3 hours on X. Jim takes a shot in the dark to say, maybe this will work. I've been so successful on the radio. That's how people consume me. Let's see what happens here. And look what he turned it into. Congrats to Jim for doing that. Congrats to you for doing what you do, for JT now trying to follow in those same footsteps as well. It's really an ode to all the work that's put in and the grind that it represents to really do this. Sure, it's fun, but there is a grind to it. But I'm so proud is not the word, obviously, for what JT is. We're a part of the 30 years, and that's just it's special. But to have Jim there for it was amazing, and of course, Gruden being there as well was obviously huge. Gruden is such a beautiful part of JT's career as well.
By the way, Gruden is just getting more free merch sent to him every day. A guy who doesn't need any free box of anything gets 50 free boxes of everything sent to him by every athletic department in the country. We should be so lucky. By the way, Otis Bird saying, Jim Rome still looks like a young guy. Well, I can tell you he's had his eyes done. He's definitely had his eyes done.
But he looks good. He's still full of energy. And look, Jim, you said it earlier about Barkley. I mean, Jim doesn't have to do another day of content in his life to be happy forever. And he just has this love for it and still finds great people.
You know what I always kind of like associate, like Jim Rome was one of those radio guys who really never wanted to be that recognized. He's not in this for the fame. He's definitely in it for the money still, but he is not in it to be recognized at Ralph's. He's not. He just, broadcasters gotta broadcast. It's just the way it is. This is my therapy. This is the reason why I don't drive my wife nuts when she gets home from work, because I can just work it all out in front of a group of, well, I would say strangers, but these aren't strangers at all here on YouTube anymore. We know everybody. We get to know people.
This is our community, and it's special. And I'll say this much. I'm glad that Jim is still doing it. And one point about Gruden, I'm so glad that Gruden is now doing content with Barstool and that we still get to consume him. One of the most sad days in history. I remember when everyone wanted Coach Gruden to get back into coaching, and I'm glad it ended up with the Raiders. That was cool to see a second stint with the Raiders, but I was so sad because I thought the greatest gift Gruden could give to the world would not be for him to go and coach one team in the NFL, for him to be with me in my living room every Monday. That was the gift. Gruden on Monday Night Football was such a gift to football, to all of us. That is where he belonged. I loved it. I got a kick out of it, and I was sad to go.
I'm going to disagree with that one a little bit.
Let's go.
It became nothing more than an overpouring of accolades for everyone and everything. And because Gruden wanted back into the room of coaches, he wouldn't say anything on air that would have prevented that from happening. Again, be selfish, right? You're always serving yourself first. And I thought that the way Charles Barkley's independence and I don't care whether you like this or not, makes him so good. That's what actually held Gruden back. Gruden had more to say and criticize, but he wouldn't criticize a thing. And that to me is what made him an at best B+ broadcaster. Had an A+ presentation. The guy was entertaining as hell, and he could frame everything quickly, and he could get his soundbite in there in under 25 seconds, and he was great at that. But, like, you know, he wanted to tell you how good Jamarcus Russell was. You know, this is not a good player. Come on.
But the QB camp was undeniably incredible. That was maybe the best of it. That was maybe to be in the shed with him and a quarterback breaking down film.
With the fired football coaches thing that he would do.
It's amazing.
Whatever got a spider-wide banana.
Love that. And for now, but maybe Barstool's the perfect avenue now, because he can be a character in a way. And he's also, you know, obviously spun out the other end of the coaching thing. So it just, I think now that we're going to see this unbridled version of Gruden, which I think the world deserves.
I wonder if somebody lets him back. I wonder if he doesn't get one more bite at the coaching apple. I think he deserves it. Look, was he let go for unbecoming reasons? Yeah. But we all have emails that would be unbecoming should some private messages we sent go public, whether they be based in, you know, any phobia or racial connotation. You know, like everyone has sent that email they would not want on the front page of the New York Times.
We want nothing of that. We all got terrified in that moment when the Gruden thing went down and those emails were uncovered. Everybody went back to their deleted and archived folders and thought, oh God, what could be coming for me? So you're right. And by the way, this league does have a way of being forgiving, and almost anything is possible. And, you know, AJ Hinch cheated the game of baseball, won a World Series on cheating, and is a current manager in the game. You know, so it just, sports has a way. I mean, look, Eagles fan, Michael Vick, that's a bad story. I mean, people love animals almost more than humans. Okay. Right. The Michael Vick story is a tough one to swallow, but when he came back and threw 80-yard touchdowns to Deshaun Jackson, I'm cheering. And look, Michael,
he paid the price, right? He paid the price.
I love that. And by the way, and if you talk to Michael Vick now, Michael Vick is an incredible, let me just say this much. Michael Vick is an incredible dude. If you ever get the chance to talk to Michael Vick ever, he is so in the moment with you. He is so locked in for what he went through. There was certainly obviously a humbling piece to what happened to Mike Vick. He is an awesome dude. I worked with him at Fox. I love Mike Vick, the person. But there was a moment when the Eagles were bringing him in off of that you thought, this guy's going to be our quarterback. I mean, how am I going to root for that? But guess what? Guess what sports does? The minute your team has more points than the other one, it's a smile on your face.
Well, I've always been saying this. You know, I use this line about Bonds a million times on Sports Phone. Everybody hates Darth Vader until he's hitting cleanup in the middle of your lineup. Then you love the guy. By the way, Barry from Memphis, he was pulling for the Grizzlies. He says, allow a humbled Grizz fan to wish Placerville a big bang bang all the way from Memphis. I'm going to tell you, that game might not have gone in the Warriors' direction had Ja not turned that ankle late. I'm very interested to see what happens Friday night. What do we got? Mavericks, Grizz for the 8th seed. Okay. All right. That's going to be an interesting game. How about the Kings firing their general manager before the before the final fan has walked out of the gym that they just lost in. What a lay down and die franchise the Kings were the other night. That's got to be disappointing.
Well, forget about the other night. Can we just go back? I mean, look, it's funny. And where do the Kings land in regards to where does Sacramento lie in regards to sports sort of radio and passion?
So Vivek Ranadive absolutely gets full credit for keeping the Kings in town. And for that, everyone has to kiss the ring now and forever. But everything he's done since keeping the Kings in town is an unmitigated disaster. And I'm going to tell you that Vivek Ranadive and John Fisher being in the same zip code means the city of Sacramento, without question, has the worst sports ownership to offer the fans of Sacramento, maybe more than any other city in America.
It's also such a bizarre gray area of just geography. Because the Bay Area is so littered with the teams that clearly belong. When you say Bay Area, we're talking about Oakland and San Francisco and, Santa Clara, Stanford, Cal, whatever. But Sacramento's not a part of that. Am I right? I mean, I'm sorry, but Damon, you spent a lot of years on the radio in San Francisco defining what it was to be a Bay Area fan. Are the Sacramento Kings, unless they're playing the Warriors, are the Sacramento Kings part of that equation at all?
Once you go past the nut tree on 80, you might as well be in fucking Nevada.
Sacramento that is like a black hole of sports franchises in a way, because it's just like you're just lost to geography. There's nothing there, right? Like Seattle's the next stop, right? It's like Warriors into Seattle. It's like Sacramento's gonna have a say here. And again, you said a doormat, maybe for the season. The idea that just had Game 7 against the Lakers was that 2002? I think it was 2002. Had Game 7 in that Western Conference Finals gone differently, right? And maybe you could say the refs did what they did, but could that have changed everything? What does that? It's funny in the moment when it's like it's just a game, but how would that have changed everything? And instead, Sacramento just goes back to being, irrelevant.
You talk about the moment that if it went the other way, what's the world look like? That's one of them. Jimmy Garoppolo hitting Emmanuel Sanders in that Super Bowl.
Oh, it's there. That ball is there.
Jimmy's still the quarterback of the 49ers. He completes that one pass. He is still the 49ers quarterback.
Without question. And he's speaking at events as a Super Bowl champion for the rest of his life. So and again, in the moment, it's like, next play, right? Think about it. That's what sports is. It's so funny. You're taught as a youngster, even, next play, we can get him next time. But man, when you go back in history and look at the difference in what those inches can be, holy shit.
It's amazing. So look, you want to talk about the difference in inches and what it could be? Did we not just see one of the ultimate examples of that play out last weekend on a golf course in Augusta, Georgia? It's old news now, but what we did get to see was such a special Masters. The Mount Rushmore of great Masters. You got Tiger in 97, Jack in 86, maybe Tiger again in 19. And what we just saw with Rory goes down as
I'll add Phil as well. Phil, I'd say Phil getting a green jacket, right? Yeah.
Phil, for sure. Before he went full heel turn on us.
Yeah, of course.
What we just saw was fantastic. You had the entire, almost the population of the world pulling for Rory in that moment. And this is a guy, I don't know if people had, really spicy opinions about him. I know that he came out against Liv and the Liv Tour, and he's become a little bit more of a firebrand than he ever was. But this is a guy who's been trying to win a career Grand Slam for 11 trips around Augusta, and he does it. And he and Tiger are the only two human beings in the last 50 years of human existence to win golf's career Grand Slam. It was special. You and I being broadcast guys, Sammy, there is no one who does a better job covering the event that they need to cover than that crew does on the Masters. And CBS taking just the most exhausted, relieved, emotionally drained looking Rory McIlroy in the walk that he made to Butler Cabin. It was theater. Everyone's seen the Martin Scorsese meme. Cinema. That was cinema. That really was.
And what I loved and what you and I can appreciate now as parents, how about when Rory missed the shot to win? So now he's got to have a playoff with Justin Rose.
Right.
Okay. So he essentially has he has his career slam. In fact, CBS did a great job. This putt for career slam, not for Masters victory. Like what is on this stick right now, right? Like this ball right now represents your career pinnacle, and it's going to go or not. And it doesn't. What does Rory do as he's walking to the playoff? He stops and kisses his daughter. I mean, that was so, because it wasn't right. Not a celebratory moment, which we've all seen. You're celebrating with your family.
Right.
Like, I need your support right now. It was one of those, like, give me.
Daddy needs this.
Daddy needs this. That was such a special moment that was captured. I couldn't believe that. And what makes it so incredibly poignant is, of course, that he does miss, because the Masters is full of the moments where that miss means he doesn't win. Right? We just talked about the difference, the if this falls, and what are the inches. And of course, the inches are there between him winning it in a playoff and not. So in that moment, it was two things. A, maybe Roy never wins it, and that was as close as he got. And the other guy I'm thinking about, Justin Rose is going to tell his grandkids that he was in a playoff for the Masters twice.
By the way, you want to know the single greatest stat from that Masters that nobody talks about? Justin Rose, who in defeat was as graceful as a human being could ever be. What a class act he is. Justin Rose had 10 birdies on Sunday and lost the Masters. 10 birdies in his final round, second place. That's
really, in a way, there isn't a more painful sport because of what it represents as an individual, because you can't put it on anyone else. You know, like, any of us can convince ourselves that a teammate somewhere, everyone does this at work, right? Your fucking bullshit coworkers who's fucking you up all the time, right? Like, all of us do that, right? And in golf, it's just like, where am I looking to blame this thing? This is on me, on these hands in this moment. If I don't breathe right, if I'm off an inch, it's over. Like, it is on you. So for that, I loved that it took the breath out of the room on the miss and then brings it back for the playoff victory. Because
I was looking for the quote because I had it, but I closed the webpage and I just can't bring it right back up. But you know who Spencer Hall is? He's a college football writer, Spencer Hall. He was writing about, a few years ago, he was writing about watching a golfer collapse. And he said there really is nothing more terrifying to broadcast on television than a golfer descending into the depths of his own mind, because there is no bottom to that. And when it starts falling apart, it doesn't fall apart slowly or, bit by bit. It just crumbles, and it's just so dramatic. And he was right. For a guy who writes about college football, he penned the most perfect paragraph I've seen about watching a golfer descend into the bottomless pit of their own minds and doubts, and summed it up perfectly. I had never rooted as hard for Rory McIlroy as I was doing in that moment. That moment pulled me into rooting for him. I'm not a sports bigamist. I'm not. I don't believe in sports bigamy. I think you pick a team as a kid and you stick with that team, and that's the team you root for, and everyone else you don't really root for or even care about much. But that's just not how people work. You do adopt things along the way. Sam, besides your childhood teams that you rooted for as a kid, I'm guessing it's Phillies, Eagles, Flyers.
Sixers are a little bit. Yeah, my dad adopted the Angels. That was the only one. My dad was such a baseball fan.
Right, you've been an Angels fan your whole life.
Yeah, and it's weird, and there was no reason to be, and it certainly wasn't like riding the coattails of some amazing history. My dad came out to LA and he was such a baseball fan, he wanted to go to games, and he couldn't do it for Dodgers. It was a Phillies conflict in the National League, so it was Angels. And back then, look, don't get me wrong, it's Nolan Ryan, Reggie Jackson. There were some cool moments. Don Baylor, like there were some cool moments. Wally Joyner obviously through that, but in the beginning when he did it. So those are the teams for me. And for you, run through it. Give everyone the list. I mean, you've got an interesting history.
I grew up in upstate New York, but because I had WGN and I was born in Chicago and I had access to Cubs games, Cubs, Bulls, Bears, and Blackhawks is how I grew up in upstate New York, arguing sports with all of my friends who were all Mets, Yankees, Bills, Giants, Jets, Eagles fans in upstate New York. So growing up arguing about sports every day of my life, I wonder if that had any imprint on me and what I became. But I got to tell you, it's so fun. When I got out here, and it's funny that I got out here because I was working for KNBR. I hated the San Francisco Giants because of the 1989 NLCS. I hated the Giants. I loved the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's were the only team who I had a poster of in my childhood room. I had the Mark McGuire Bash Brothers poster with Canseco in my room. And I had another one of those old, you bought them in the back of Sports Illustrated for $2, Ricky Henderson posters. Wearing the all gold pullover, taken off, stealing second base. I had that. I had the Ricky Henderson and I had the Bash Brothers. I got to tell you, I always kind of grew up a Miami Hurricanes guy too.
Ooh. Okay. Well,
Miami, dude, the Canes were nasty when
dominated.
Yeah.
Dominate. R.I.P. Ricky, by the way, that you brought him up. I mean, yeah, Ricky,
absolutely
legend.
I was always pro Syracuse Jim Boeheim.
Oh, okay. Love that.
I always liked Jim Boeheim. He was my kind of asshole. Growing up in upstate New York, it's so funny. The night I went to Indiana, the night of the 1986 national championship game, I was 11 years old. I was in upstate New York. I was rooting for Syracuse. Ronnie Cycli, look at that hair.
Love
great.
It.
This is not something any Warriors fans listening wants to hear because it could be a second round matchup for the Warriors if they get past the Rockets. I'm officially rooting for Luka Doncic to win an NBA title just to turn around to the Mavericks and be like, anything else? Is there any other element of why you traded me you'd like to actually go forward in a press conference that you're so afraid of you don't even want it to be documented?
That would be
How
an
about
ultimate.
Luka winning a title? Wouldn't that be incredible? He's got the Mavericks in the championship, but they lose. He then gets traded to the Lake. Imagine if the Lakers win it this year.
Oh. And again, especially if the Mavs don't make the playoff at all, by the way, right? That would be amazing. Or is it even better if he goes through them in some way? That would be awesome.
Do you realize that the Warriors, thank God they got past the Memphis Grizzlies, because they would be in a situation Friday night where there was no winning it. Like you can win it and be the 8th seed, but even if you beat either everyone is laughing at them Mavericks with Klay Thompson and Anthony Davis and no Luka and no Kyrie, who's a Warrior killer, or you're going to have to deal with the Sacramento Kings because there was a chance that was going to be the team that was coming in. It was just, thank God the Warriors didn't put themselves in that situation where they're playing again on Friday. Good God, that would have been.
I love it. And I love the Warriors run here. And it's actually going to tie into something. So what you're ultimately asking is when you watch Rory on Sunday and you're thinking, all right, you're pretty much, you and I were rooting for him to get that career slam. And it's so rare in sports that you're watching something that isn't your team that you find yourself rooting for. And it's almost inexplicable how it happens. I mean, I'll go back to 1994. The Rangers were trying to break the curse in the Stanley Cup final. Mark Messier with the guarantee against the Devils, and they get the Stanley Cup final against the Canucks.
Mato.
I was I fell in love with Pavel Bure. First of all, he does have a beautiful face. I mean, that's a good looking man, by the way. But Pavel Bure was just so spectacular with the puck. Like there was just something, I don't know, there's what tie do I have to Vancouver? And none, zero. And all of a sudden, I'm young in my sports fandom, but I'm just like, all I can do is root for the Canucks to win the Stanley Cup. Why? How and why?
An early inception of EA's NHL, and I was the Winnipeg Jets all the time. I had Teemu Selanne,
and Kachuk, I think too.
Yeah, Ty Domi.
Yes, Kachuk, I think, is on that team as well. The question we're asking is, how many times in your life have you rooted for something that isn't your team? And is there someone today that you are? And you said it, Luka's a great one. Like right now, the guy I want to win is that.
And by the way, can I give you one more, just from a personal standpoint? Please. I've watched the whole thing. I've had a courtside seat to all of it. I really hope Kyle Shanahan gets to die a happy man, and he won't without a Super Bowl. Like Kyle Shanahan winning a Super Bowl, the amount of the entire world now has to shut the fuck up would just be tremendous if that were to happen. I'm rooting for that guy.
I absolutely love that. And I'm going to go back in history and then I'll give you one currently. But back in history, I fell in love with this run. I ended up at the Final Four in Indy when Butler was playing Duke in the final. The Gordon Hayward Gordon Hayward run.
Sure.
We talk about those moments. Brad Stevens, Gordon Hayward. I think Shelvin Mack was on that team as well.
Mhm.
We talk about we go back. Brian Zubek missed the free throw for Duke on purpose, I believe. He missed it on purpose because there was so little time left.
Hayward nearly hit a
Hayward
three-quarter
gets
shot.
the ball on the rebound and throws up what is a three-quarter shot. And you talk about inches in the world. Without question, and that shot hit the rim. But without question, if that shot goes in, it is the greatest shot in the history of college basketball, hands down, for the sheer distance it has to travel. And of course, it's winning a championship against Mike Krzyzewski and Duke.
Right.
I wanted that to happen because of how close it got. And I realized how much I was rooting for Gordon Hayward in that moment. There was sort of an everyman piece of it to me that Gordon Hayward was just like, you could picture him like shooting.
I mean, it's
there was like a
it's
Hoosiers
the underdog. It's like the movie Hoosiers actually happening.
Hoosiers was Butler was Hoosiers coming to life. It just was. It just absolutely was. And I just wanted it for that team in that moment. And I found myself rooting beyond what I could ever imagine. But in regards to saying it right now, this is not going to necessarily be a popular opinion, but there's two things that I root for to kind of continue happening. And I don't even know why, but one of them is, again, Sixers would be my team really if it's basketball. I want the Warriors to win championships every season, and I'll tell you why. I want Steph to have a road to being claimed as the greatest basketball player of all time. I mean, I catching Jordan's nearly impossible, so maybe we'll just say Jordan's on an island by himself. Let's just let that happen. But is there a number of championships that Steph Curry could win to where we can definitively say with what he's done in the record book, and then if he's also got the championships to back it up, is there and to have done it without Durant, to now do it without Clay potentially, like, is there a path where we could now say, wow, this kid from Davidson comes into the league. We're more upset that Monte Ellis is not being re-signed for him to come on to be a part of the Warriors. And he's going to rewrite the history books. And not because he's the biggest player in the game and dominating the way Shaq and Wilt Chamberlain did, because he's going to redefine the way people play and see the game. He's going to change what happens on the court, change the entire strategy of the game, and become the greatest player of all time. I find myself in every moment, in every way. There's almost nothing Steph Curry can do on a basketball court that I am not rooting for. And I've said this to you before, the 3-point shots, the half-court shots, yes. But please look up Steph Curry, Chris Paul, and see what Steph Curry can do with his handles also around and near the basket as well. And he doesn't showcase that necessarily as much anymore. But Steph Curry, from sort of an everyman in a game of giants, for Steph Curry to be in the conversation about the greatest of all time. And I think he's only in the conversation. I don't think there's a lot of people dying on a hill to say he is. And I'm saying even
it is a sport of size, and he's always going to be deficient in that department. It's also, he's just not we've even seen Steve take him off the court in big possessions at the end of games where it's got to be a defensive possession. So that's going to hurt the argument too. I don't in my life will ever believe there will be a bigger apex predator on a basketball court than Michael Jordan. I am also comfortable saying LeBron James has, without a doubt, had the single greatest career in NBA history. I'm not saying he's the best player in NBA history, but he has had the greatest career with the most amount of accolades tied to it through postseason success and regular season statistics. But Steph Curry is one of only 3 evolutionary steps in the history of the sport. We're going back to black and white footage here. George Mikan of the Minneapolis Lakers brought the game to the rim. He was the very first giant on a basketball court. Mikan brought the game to the rim. Jordan then brought the game above the rim, and Curry moved the game behind the 3-point line. So I think when we talk about the 3 most impactful careers in terms of evolution of the game, that's where Steph enters the conversation as one of the indisputable most important players to have ever played.
And I love that. And I just want more for the argument. I also think we need to not overlook the championship that was won, by the way, against the Celtics. They beat the Celtics. Okay.
Right.
You talk about like the history.
Went on a run.
Right. To beat the Celtics in an NBA Finals after Durant leaves the team, I don't think we're far enough away. There aren't enough years that have passed to look back on what that's going to mean when we talk about Steph's career. That really defined it for me and said, wow, for him to sort of reconstruct it outside of the dominance of what Durant was. And I've already told you, those are my favorite teams to watch without question. The Durant Warriors was just like, all I want is that happening. And, but for the Warriors, I want Steph, wherever he is, to win championships. I want that argument to grow. That is what I root for. Every basketball season is interesting to me when Steph has a chance.
Yeah.
And
he's got one, because it's not because the Warriors are great, but it's because the Western Conference is wide open.
Wide open.
This thing is wide open. Why not them? Why not? So we'll see, right?
I love that.
This though about Kevin Durant. I never want him to win again. Like, I find myself actively rooting against any element of postseason success ever coming his way again. And if you talk about, I don't know if Curry will ever be able to piece together the career resume that means he's better than LeBron, but he's better than Kevin Durant. I don't give a shit whose career averages or what, or how this guy is a bucket. Kevin Durant is nothing more than a magnet. Steph Curry is the refrigerator that the magnet gets attached to.
That is beautifully said. We should put that on t-shirts. What Kevin Durant, we can all argue Kevin Durant was never more likable than
Kevin
when he was a
Durant
Warrior.
couldn't lead a winning operation for a game of tiddlywinks. He would abdicate any responsibility of leadership, even though he was the best tiddlywinks player playing tiddlywinks that day. He'd just be like, man, I'm just here to tiddle. I'm just here to tiddle. And that's not what leadership is. As
you said, with great responsibility, right? With the crown comes great responsibility. And Kevin Durant, I would say Kevin Durant certainly wore the crown when he was beating LeBron in back-to-back finals. I mean, when Kevin Durant was clearly the best. I mean, it wasn't even Kevin Durant was the best player in the game. For that moment in time, Kevin Durant that was when he was building the argument for greatest current player in the game, was in those moments. He was the most likable in those moments. And I will agree with you. I'm not going to say I don't root against, but I chuckle every time. And of course, share with you and share with our audience here to hear Kevin Durant speak about why he did not rejoin the Warriors.
Didn't want to move again.
It's painful. Now, look, for you and me, choosing a job like that will play a factor. Don't get me wrong, but this is not. Neither one of us are going to be offered what Kevin Durant has offered to do what he does that he loves to do. So we got to take sort of what is the painful part of the move out of it, because when you travel and live the way that these guys do, I'm sorry, but pain is no part of it. Kevin Durant saying that he wanted to see the Suns chapter through to the end is just an irresponsible thing to say when he had an opportunity to join this Warriors team, to do it again with Steph, to be there with Draymond again. Apparently there's no beef there amongst anybody. Why not give it another run when you destroyed this league together? You ran through this league hot knife in butter. There was nothing more powerful than that team on the court.
But because a 14-year-old kid in Tulsa tweeted the snake emoji at him, he had to go.
I'm so upset about it. And the Mike Budenholzer firing is just like the perfect cherry on top for that. Mike Budenholzer, who is an NBA champion, who really, before this stop, could have done no wrong in Milwaukee for the rest of his life. And instead, in Phoenix, is a one and done blip on the radar, forgotten coaching stint.
After the last one and done, there's been 2 one and dones now in Phoenix back to back. And who's bigger coach killer than Kevin Durant right now? He killed Steve Nash. He killed Kenny Atkinson. He who then came after in Brooklyn there. Again, I've forgotten. It doesn't even matter, because everything that Kevin Durant has done has been completely disposable since leaving the Golden State Warriors. It's been nothing but a sequence of bad decisions, and your foot was on the line for a big shot that might have, beaten the Milwaukee Bucks.
And that Nets team, remember what that Nets team was? The poster of what that Nets team was going to be that season.
By the way, Otis Bird, thank you. Jacques Vaughn. It was Jacques Vaughn. Thank you.
Yes, it was. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Ben Simmons. They were on the court I believe, for 12% of the potential time that they had to be on the court together.
Head
That's how much
case,
time they
head
spent.
case, basketball pussy, head case.
That will define, unfortunately, that will define Durant more than anything. That team photo of them together, and of course, never being on the court together, will ultimately be what it is, because the potential there, that Nets team should have absolutely been in the conversation for championships every season, and wasn't at all. And I'm just selfishly, again, sad that I didn't get to see more games and more playoff games of Durant and Steph together, because it was just the perfect, to me, it was just the perfect marriage. It was exciting to watch. And even the dominance I didn't tire of. I just didn't. I didn't tire of them sweeping teams. That's what I was rooting for.
Yeah, no, and look, we love dominance, and what would have made the whole Kevin Durant thing cool at the end of it is if they had literally stayed together, won more championships than anybody, had been the Pablo Escobar of winning NBA titles and been the biggest drug dealer of victory the NBA had seen in modern times. That would have made that shit stone cold awesome. But he got yelled at, he pouted, he never stopped pouting, and he had to leave because Draymond said, "You ain't a leader." And Draymond was right. Draymond was right. Anyways, Draymond probably fucked that up too. Let's be totally honest. But look, this has basically been a hell of a show today. I thank everyone for coming on by. Barry said, "Hey, what impact did the ABA have on the game that's still a part of the game today?" Hey, when they're doing all of these, here's the thing. I've seen the dumbest courts and the stupidest jerseys ever. How come they can't bring back the ABA ball, the red, white, and blue ball to play a couple of NBA games with when you're doing all these stupid jerseys and courts and stuff? Bring back the ABA ball.
Love that.
The ABA gave us what? The Pacers gave us there was another, it was the Spurs. The Spurs were an ABA team. The Pacers were an ABA team.
And Dr. J as well, no?
And Dr. J and the Nets.
Yeah, the Nets and Dr. J. Come on, yeah.
I think there was one more, but basically, the NBA doesn't lean into its ABA history. Well, technically, it's not their history to lean into, but you think that they would embrace it a bit more. The ABA made basketball cool. The ABA brought like afros into the conversation and just made it look awesome. And by the way, the entire league was coked up, so those games played at a great pace.
It's like the pitch clock. It's like the pitch clock down baseball.
So there you go. This was a hell of a show today. There's nothing left, Sammy, but for today's history lesson.
Oh, let's please.
Are you ready? Here we go.
Let's go, please.
First of all, let's say happy birthday to a well-kept woman. And again, she became a well-kept woman because she was a well-kept Spice Girl. Happy birthday, Victoria Beckham. She's lived a pretty good life, don't you think? Like, all you are is blazing hot, super popular, and then marry one of the biggest celebrities in the history of your sport and the history of your continent. The Beckham's got a good life.
By the way, and here's the lesson before you move on. Everybody right now, stop what you're doing and go to your Netflix queue and make sure that you've watched Beckham, the series.
Is it good?
Story, dude, for the story he tells about what his life was on the pitch, I'll pretend to be, soccer savvy. I'm not at all. You don't have to give a shit about soccer. Watch what he did to get where he got, and she's in it the whole time talking about her role in it. It is so good. They did a Super Bowl commercial this year, and it was based on the popularity of the show that they did on Netflix. I'm just telling you, Damon, you and Jillian will get such a kick out of it.
Okay.
Because there really are the two sides of it, because you really are seeing it from both their perspectives. It's if you like sports, forget about soccer. If you like sports, Beckham's a fucking superstar, right? I mean, they made a movie, Bend It Like Beckham, right? I mean, so if you like sports, a bird drop, one drop, watch this series.
So I've been told the exact same thing about the Drive to Survive.
Oh, of course,
Formula,
the F1, right? Yeah, exactly.
On Netflix. Again, I got no interest in F1, and I have no interest in soccer, so I haven't gotten either of them. And people have told me, you screwed that up, Damon. Those are worth watching.
And the beauty of the way we consume today is you screwed it up only until you pick up the remote again, right? Like, it's not gone forever.
It's a 14-hour flight to Japan coming up.
I'm just telling you. I'm telling you right now, the Beckham thing. Jillian, I promise you, Jillian will find a reason to watch also.
All right. Happy 53rd birthday to America's prettiest credit card spokesperson, Jennifer Garner. I don't know if she does anything other than move Capital One merch now these days. So happy birthday to her. She's well paid for doing that.
And her and Ben Affleck, like, I mean, congratulations. That was a real thing, right? I mean, Bennifer. No, but I mean, Bennifer, like, I mean, anyone who has that moment.
Bennifer Jennifer Lopez? Bennifer?
Yeah, you're right. That was Bennifer. Yeah, but Garner and Ben.
He went to Garner, back to Lopez.
Like, just go get it. Go get it. And congrats for him on that. Jennifer, yeah, beautiful.
He got his spicy taco kisses. Greatest South Park episode ever, maybe.
So
okay. So happy birthday, Daffy Duck. Today in 1937, Daffy Duck's first appearance ever came in a Looney Tunes cartoon called Porky's Duck Hunt. And that's so happy birthday, Jennifer Garner, Victoria Beckham, and Daffy Duck.
Daffy Duck, an icon, maybe the most iconic of all those that you just mentioned.
Look at it this way. He's made so much money, he ain't trying to sell anybody a freaking credit card these days.
Nope.
Little history here in the Bay Area today. Sammy, in 1906, San Francisco hit 7.8 on the Richter. In 1906, today, San Francisco was hit by a devastating earthquake that was then turned in. The earthquake was bad. The fire was worse. And they've called it the fire of San Francisco because they were afraid that people wouldn't want to come and move to a place that had earthquakes. So they called it the fire because fires are easy to avoid.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Literally the entire city's burning at the same time, which it did that day. The reason why Van Ness Avenue is such a dividing line in the city is because all the homes that used to be mansions along Van Ness Avenue were blown up in that moment to stop the fire from spreading to the western side of San Francisco. Van Ness Avenue is where they tried to cut off the downtown fire.
That was the trench. That's where they dug. Wow. So that's a great piece of history. Well, good. We'll walk Van Ness now with a new appreciation for what that is. And yeah, I mean, obviously in Southern California with what they're going through with fires in 2025, that brought up those memories. And it was brought up.
A shaker in San Diego this
week.
We did.
Yeah, it hit 6. It hit 6. So that's a big one. That's a real one.
Good. That is one. Hopefully everyone was down there was okay. I also like the fault line taking a little pressure off. A little 4 or 5 or 6 shaker here and there. It's good for business. Whatever prevents the 8-point whatever from hitting the Hayward. That's what we need. Okay, the next 2 dates here are, you know what? I'm going to say the next 3 dates are among the most American things you can do. Today in 1951, Mickey Mantle made his debut for the New York Yankees. Today in 1964, the first ever Ford Mustang rolled off the line into the North American market.
Our friend Drew Sherman in the chat right now is a proud owner of a Mustang. He's got the Batmobile version, but yeah, the Mustang has been beloved. And Damon, the most famous Mustang in my life for sure is the red convertible Mustang that you took from San Francisco to Bristol, Connecticut. I only wish we had a photo of what it looked like in Bristol. I know what it looked like in San Francisco. It was looking good. It met its demise, I believe, in Bristol, Connecticut, but you were a proud owner of a Mustang.
Nothing says you're not ready for slick conditions and 8 inches of snow, quite like a rear drive convertible Mustang. Like, what's funny is they saw that pull up and then I get out of it. They were expecting like a surfer or something to get out of it, but it was just me. Anyways, so, you know, I'm sure like your son, like all our little boys, love dinosaurs, cars, and trucks, right?
Period.
It's undefeated. Those 3 things. It's like the holy trinity for a 3-year-old. So my son, Ozzy, is fascinated by Ford trucks. He loves big trucks. He also loves the Mustang. And the other day I was explaining to him, these are both Fords. Watching him understand that, it's the mind being blown gif. Like, he had no idea that a truck and a Mustang could be related. And it was awesome to see him get that. Anyways, to round out our what's more American than that shit triumvirate right here again. In 51, Mantle made his debut. 64, the Mustang makes its debut. About 4 days ago, I told everyone that the Apollo 13 mission launched during a day in history. Well, today is the day that the command module splashed back down 4 days after that oxygen tank, after after Kevin Bacon stirred the oxygen and it all blew, and Gary Sinise and Tom Hanks are like, what'd you do there, Kevin Bacon? It's not bad enough that you're up here with syphilis, giving everybody the dick scratches because we're all using the same pee tube. You nearly killed us all. Apollo 13 splashed down today in 1970.
Is there anything more mind-boggling than space travel? So I'm sure for Jack and for Ozzy, learning about space in school has been this unbelievable thing for Levi. He is so fascinated by planets, the moon, the sky, space shuttle. Is there anything more mind-boggling as far as technology and what could happen and what you could have ever played a part of in your life than the idea that you can fly to the moon? That you have to know that the oxygen changes, like just the amount of things that have to be known to make that happen. NASA just should forever mean, I mean, we've come to now learn in like MIT means you're smart and whatnot. Can we just say like NASA, if you talked about it, there was no apex predator like Michael Jordan. NASA to me is sort of the apex predator of being a genius in this world.
Well, what's our go-to saying? What are you, a rocket scientist?
Boom. Yes.
There they are.
Yes, I am.
Yes, they are. They
Yes,
are all rocket scientists for real. What are you, a rocket scientist? Yes.
Rocketdyne, by the way, right here, not far from my house here at Gaviota, which you've spent plenty of time in, Damon. Rocketdyne is a place that builds spacecraft here in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. And every time I used to pass the building, I would get chills for just like feeling how much smarter everybody was than I could ever be. You could just feel the hard work that was going on in there. And you knew like, that's homework I can't take home. Like that's homework I cannot accomplish.
They're doing math that there's no calculator you could hand me that I could ever do.
There is no TI-82 to help you out of that. It's just, it's on another level.
Did you ever see what's the movie, about the black woman who worked for NASA?
Oh yeah. And it was up for Academy Award too.
Yeah,
no, it was outstanding. Okay. But before we finish,
Janelle Monáe was in this movie.
Yes.
She was really good in it. Anyway, that movie, fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic movie. I want to say Beautiful Minds, but that's not.
You're right. It's beautiful. It is beautiful something though. It is. But you're right about Monet being in it as well.
Hidden Figures.
Yes.
Barry Ford coming in from Barry Ford.
Thank you. Hidden Figures was so good. Yeah, not Beautiful Figures, but Hidden Figures. What a great movie. By the way, yes, go back and watch that. It's a tremendous one.
Today in 1979, the worst attended MLB home game ever happened in Oakland. 250 people showed up today in 1979. Was that the day after opening day in 79? Did it go from sold out to like 250? Either way, the attendance issues that they hope to solve will not be solved, apparently, in West Sacramento. It really, the problems with the A's, what do you know, had nothing to do with the city of Oakland. What do you know? What do you know?
Think? And let me say one other thing about being at a game with few people in it. You and I went to plenty of A's games, not enough people there, Dollar Wednesdays that we loved. I did myself a favor. I was in Montreal once in my life. And I went to Stade Olympique. They were actually playing still. The Expos were still there. I went to Olympic. Yep. I went to Olympic Stadium and watched the Expos. Kurt Schilling was pitching for the Diamondbacks that day. And I watched Schilling. He was dominant that day against the Expos. I believe Ladd was on that team as well. It was, I'm talking about a pin drop because it's also, because it was domed, Damon. There's nothing like being in an empty place inside. Like, this is supposed to be a sold out conference and it's just not. Like, something about being in a park is like empty is kind of nice, right? Like, you're in the Coliseum, empty just makes it more convenient for you. Being inside a place that is supposed to be rocking, that's supposed to be taking advantage of the sound because it's now covered. You
just hear the echoes of how quiet it is in here.
It's like, it was, I'm telling you, I've had catches with my dad in the backyard that were as intimate as watching this game that day with Kurt Schilling on the mound. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Announced crowd of 2,000. I swear to God, there were 40 people there.
I mean, I can't wait for there are less than 1,000 people here game in Oakland that is coming to them this, some Wednesday night Miami Marlins. No, excuse me. It's going to be a Wednesday getaway day game against the Miami Marlins, and it's going to be 111 degrees. And nobody's going to want to be at an A's Marlins game that day in West Sacramento. Today, our final note in Today in History. And again, we don't do a lot of pop TV shows here or movies because we want to keep it real historical things. But again, if it hit me, mattered to me, it gets to make the list that I put together. Be selfish, right, Sammy? Be selfish.
Be selfish, please.
Today in 2011, Game of Thrones debuted on HBO. I loved Game of Thrones. It's not a genre I've gone back to. I don't like the next inception of Game of Thrones, not nearly as much. I'm watching, but what I like most about it is the zip code that this story takes place in. I am not a sci-fi, fantasy, dragony, pixie-ish type of entertainment connoisseur at all, but Game of Thrones to me was like watching The Sopranos take place in Middle Earth. I loved it. And then unfortunately, the last 3 episodes were almost enough to ruin 7 great years. But okay, we'll get over it. I loved Game of Thrones. Today in 2011, it debuted.
So 2 things about Game of Thrones. First of all, Game of Zones, which was the TNT spinoff of that, is one of the most brilliant spoofs of all time. I mean, it goes to show you what the popularity of that show was to cross over into sports the way that it did. But Game of Zones is outstanding. Go check out however many episodes they made. The one about the Warriors super team is maybe my favorite Game of Zones did, where Clay is like singing a song. It's fantastic. Game of Zones, do yourself a favor. What they did, they make Popovich a White Walker. Like the whole thing is unreal. Right? Like, please do yourself a favor.
It was Popovich and Kawhi were White Walkers.
It was so, and Kawhi just goes, yeah. I mean, it's okay. But I did what you will consider the most blasphemous thing of all time. So Game of Thrones, I was late to. Okay. So now it's final season Game of Thrones, right? And it's like the world, you cannot have a conversation anywhere that
did you start Game of Thrones with the final episode?
So the final season, I jumped into the final season, but before that, I said to myself, all right, I got to know something here. So I watched episode 1. So season 1, episode 1, I watched that. And then I jumped to, because it was too monumental, I had to do it. I jumped to Red Wedding and then watched the final season. Now, it's blasphemous to do what I did because I'm watching the bloodbath in Red Wedding and none of the people matter to me, right? Like, it's just like all of the oohs and ahs. Like, to me, it's just a gladiator scene of everyone, like everyone dies. Okay, great. But the emotion of what's happening is like completely lost on me. I appreciated the final season. I loved it. I love that you say it does bridge the gap of sci-fi and believing in dragons and all that. Like, you don't have to understand how brilliantly executed that show was.
Well, it's a true creation of a universe. I mean, it's a creation of a universe that goes back to family crests, family trees, battle. I mean, there was a time where I was probably as well versed in fictional Westeros battles as I was with like actual Civil War battles.
You just you absolutely follow it like it is real history. And by the way, it was also very politically driven, right? I mean, the idea that there were different classes and whatnot, like it was all, I mean, it was all mirroring kind of what happens in the world now.
Right. North of the wall, south of the wall. Correct. Do you build a wall? That sort of thing. Who you keeping out? You trying to keep anyone in? It was really, really well done and executed for so long. And then again, the end of it kind of lost, I think, its clarity, because you had the producers running off to do Star Wars shit.
Right.
That was the end of it.
How do you end anything? I mean, again, Seinfeld will always be that for me. It's like ending it is just so brutally difficult to do.
By the way, to speak of the red, and I know we got to get going here, but the Red Wedding, it's so funny. That was such a moment in pop culture, and people went through it in real time. I brought Jillian to The Wire way past The Wire's prime. So like, she had seen Game of Thrones, and now we're doing The Wire, which she admits was, as A+ of a television show as she has ever seen. It was incredible. It's absolutely locked into a moment in time where, this right here would have ruined 6 episodes of The Wire, because this eliminates all the plot point and the drama that was in that moment. The world has changed. Okay, this is spoilers, everyone. So The Wire chronologically came out before Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And one of the single biggest television deaths of my life is Stringer Bell. When Stringer Bell gets murdered and shot at the end of, what is it, the second season, it's the first time a show really ever like pieced out a main character that early in a story. And it was shocking. So I know we're watching this episode that ends like this with Jillian, and it happens. Stringer Bell shot. Roll the credits. I turned to her and I go, huh? And she was like, okay. And I didn't realize Jillian had been forged in the fire of the Red Wedding. There's no such, she had seen an entire cast. The main cast was killed off in an episode, much less one guy. So like the death of Stringer Bell to her was, an appetizer. It didn't hit her big at all. I'm like, look at what just happened. You wouldn't believe it. And she was like, oh, yeah, I seen the Red Wedding. I'm used to everyone dying.
She's just calloused by the entire thing. Can I say that I need to, and I tried to do The Wire, and because of what you just said, you're so right. It is so difficult to jump into The Wire later now. And I know how epic it is. And it's the one I haven't gone through. I have to do it. I made Allie do Sopranos, which she loved. And that's another one that obviously has so much in it. But you're right. It is those moments. It's the tragic moments that we remember most. I've said it about sports as well. It's really, life is about losing, and losing those characters is really more impactful in your life than anything else.
Totally. It's anyways, there's your show today.
Oh,
hey, thanks
man.
everyone so much for watching. Get a sandwich from Ike's for lunch today. Go to the Dubliner and West Portal. Get to Status Hamantash if you need that cookie
please.
For when Passover, for when you're ready to break your fast.
Break it.
Do it with some Hamantash.
Please do.
And all I can tell you is thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, not only here to Damon Bruce Plus, but over on Thinking Out Loud with Sam Batesh. Yes. And if you're over there, come give me love. If you're over here, go give Sammy love. And that's how we all love each other. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And please do remember that sports don't build character. They reveal it. And like that, Sammy, they're gone.